Hey, it's Joey Balladonna here from Anthrax, and this is SAGAS.
Well,
look, this is a big one.
I didn't break out and join the podcast today.
It is now time for Devil's Advocate. Same time, same place, awesome. What's going on, everybody? This is Corbin, the Serpentine Skipwith.
And this is Ran the Berserker Marabou, and this is
Sagas.
Woo! Sagas, welcome.
Yeah. Episode 56. Right?
Wow.
And you've
Every
been gone
week,
for like 36 of them. So, it's good. 56. And I'm excited because this is the start of a new era. Of us, it's the folk album. But, I'm very excited to talk about it. I've got the album cover behind me. But before we talk about this, well, I think anyway, is an amazing album, we have to mention Morgrot. So Morgrot, as we've mentioned the past few weeks, our most recent collaborator, John Sorrell, does his own physical issues. I have one right here. This is the issue 6 fall edition. So what it is, it's a compilation of reviews, artwork, and interviews that John does himself. There's a lot of cool stuff on it. Obviously, it's a different album cover every month, every issue. This was this issue. It has our cool logo down there, which will be featured on all Morgrot going forward, which I'm very excited about. The way the collaboration happened is I agreed to do reviews for him, and in return, I would be able to mention him, recommend him artists to promote. That's how Ren got into this one, which is this one. Ren's somewhere there. Yeah, so anyway, yes. So thanks to that, we became collaborators. There's me right there.
Check.
So it's really cool. Bunch of artwork, reviews, interviews, and you also get a bunch of bonus stuff as well. So please go ahead and pick it up. Morgrot collaboration with Sagas from now on. As I have the past few weeks, the link will be up top, or where to go will be on top. Go check out Morgrot. Support them on social media, and when you can, pick up an issue. Trust me, it's worth it.
Awesome.
Cool. Now that's out the way. There you go, John. You fuckwit. No. No, we love you, John. So it was my choice this week, and I've always wanted to do a folk album. To me, when I talk about, to me, I think when I think of metal, I also think of the kind of like tree branches to the main tree. I always think of stuff like rock and roll, punk, country, folk. I always think of these things that I feel are entwined in metal because metal started from rock, and rock started from so it's just like so. Because of that, starting a podcast like this, I've always wanted to get the opportunity to talk about a folk album. And as I said at the end of last week's episode, the album we're going to talk about today is one of my two favorite albums in the folk genre. My other is Peasant by Richard Dawson. This album is the 2006 release by folk artist Joanna Newsom, and this is her second album, just titled YS. And don't forget, this is also the wife of Jake Peralta, the real wife. So any Brooklyn Nine-Nine fans out there, this is Jake's real life wife. So that's pretty cool. Cool little trivia. So with that being said, I'm excited to hear your first opinions. Let me have.
Right. Well, obviously, I'm very disappointed that Jake Peralta didn't really marry Amy in real life. I'm just going to put that out there. Being a fan of the show, I'm like, damn. But so jokes aside, this actually really surprised me, because you said folk, right? But anybody that's used to listening to folk, this is a very non-traditional folk. I've seen it being described as freak folk, which I thought was really interesting. And loads of really unusual ways of describing folk. This music is being described as. I really liked it simply because without her amazing harp playing, you wouldn't have this amazing timbre of music. I had to bring out the harp because anybody that doesn't know, Joanna is a very accomplished harpist, and that's what straight away I was like, oh, cool, man. Because it sets into a time period, and you can see by the art behind Corbin there that it's got this medieval kind of vibe, which straight away appealed to me. So my first initial thoughts listening to it, it was like, you're trying to show it off, yeah. I'm gonna make myself disappear. Yeah, I thought like the vocals are very unusual. We get into that later. The harp music, the harpist, stylistically, it's very medieval. I know you can make a more contemporary harp sound, but she sticks to the traditional. And then you add elements of like cinematic, like strings of all kinds, and trumpets or brass. And it's just a really interesting listen. So straight away, I was like, right. So I had to sit down and listen to it because I'll say in a little bit, but it's very intricate music as well.
Yeah, this is, as soon as I remember hearing this album for the first time and just being intrigued by the instrumentation, by the production of it, just how different this album sounded to anything else I've ever heard at the time. And like obviously we'll talk about the vocals more soon, but the reason, just the pre-context, I don't know where I heard this. I think it was an interview or something I read 8 years ago, but the reason why she chose to do the vocals that style is apparently to represent something like the authentic style of like hundreds of years ago, like how the real like medieval women would sound, kind of like why country artists sound the way they do, or why or blues artists, like they want to keep it. They care more about keeping it authentic than they do quality. And obviously there are a lot, like I think everyone I've shown this album to, they don't like it for the vocal reasons. And, it's completely understandable. Like I do get that, but, I appreciate that because I think, and obviously this whole week I've been re-listening to this, getting ready for this. And I feel like had she have done normal vocals, like, I don't know, a bit more modern approach, I think it would have ruined the album. I think it would have made it less magical in a way, less. So I appreciate that she went out on a limb. And I mean, if you listen to her discography, which I do every now and then, she has a bunch of she has a few amazing albums after this one, but the vocal styles get a little bit easier to listen to towards the future of after this, but it's still in the same realm, and I like that she's keeping it traditional, and trying to replicate what she thinks at least was the authentic sound of, of the time period that she's trying to replicate, the medieval time period, which, like I appreciate the sentiment to do that, because it's like, obviously, I think she would have known how much flack she'd cop for doing that style. And obviously, like I said, how many people have I shown this to and they've been turned off right away because of the vocals? And it's not that I don't understand. It's just, if you look into why she's doing it, this stuff, from the artwork to the production to the if you look at the list of orchestra added to this, it is insane. Like, there's so many violin, clarinet, cello, viola, flute, bassboon, trumpet. It's just French horn. There's so much in here, and she's trying to make this as larger than life as possible, but also keeping it authentic, which I think is a point a lot of people, and obviously most people, not most people, but a lot of people, when they listen to an album, I guess they don't care about stuff like that. They don't care about authenticity. They don't care about why or how. They just care, does it sound trendy? Does it sound catchy? If not, I don't like it. And there are some people out there, and that's fine if you think that way. It's just, I just think it's a shame when people can't, when people look at one aspect and ignore why it's done that way. So I guess I'm always finding myself defending this album because not only because I'm probably biased, it's one of my favorites, but because I know why. I studied why she sings the way she does, and it's not just random. She's not just trying to sound this way for no reason. So yeah, I think there are a lot of elements, and yeah, I guess I just kind of lightly wanted to bring up the vocals before we get into a deep dive of them.
Yeah, I mean that whole style of vocals is it at the very beginning, but the minute I heard it, I wasn't expecting this vocal gymnastics that she threw out, like straight off the bat on the first track, Emily. It was just like, it was really unusual, and then I don't know, it was like on my very first listen, before I really understood after a few songs, she had this straight away. I thought it was really interesting because it was the strange flat overtones, which probably doesn't mean much to most people, but like it sounds that shouldn't sound correct but sound correct, married to vocals that lock in solid on the key. And she's just got this, and that's what I call vocal gymnastics. It's just like she's going from one pitch, and that's another thing she does where it's wild. She's just like this feral, like pitch will come out of nowhere, and it must be an engineer's nightmare to try and get all this smooth out together. But like it's a really interesting style. And it's a style choice because I don't think anybody naturally sings that way. Although when anybody sings, they're putting on some kind of technique or form or style in their voice. But this is especially trying to push it out there. So what I mean is she's actually really fucking talented. She's not just doing it naturally. It's not just a technique, but she's trying to create something that's just, I would almost call otherworldly. I mean, she's pulling from the past, like way back before there was even recordings, So like, there's a lot of research has gone into this, stylistically with the medieval harp stuff and the voice. It just transports you back to that time. And I love that. That to me is just incredible. But when you think about who made this record, right, it's just absolutely mind-blowing. I'm just gonna drop one name first on this album, right? Steve Albini, right? Anybody that doesn't know Steve Albini, he's worked on some of the biggest records of all time and some of my favorite albums. And when I found out he worked on this album, it all made sense. The whole thing just made sense. Steve Albini, if anybody knows Nirvana, this little band called Nirvana, they released an album called The Neutro. And Steve, he's such an incredible music-minded man. He's worked on thousands of albums. Like, he's worked at Iggy Pop. He's worked with Sun-O that we done on the podcast before. Chevelle, Razorblade Suitcase by Bush, which is one of my favorite albums as well, growing up. And Jimmy Page and Robert Plant. He's worked with everybody. Pixies. The reason why Nirvana, Kurt Cobain picked Steve Albini to work with was because of the Pixies album that he worked on. So, needless to say, this album was handed to, and her second album as well, on an independent label. She went for such a big name. And what Steve does is he lets the artist flourish in what they're doing. When they come to a studio, they lay it all out on the table, and he doesn't want credit on the album, as in like, he likes to be called a sound engineer or a recording engineer rather than a producer, because he doesn't want to be credited or doesn't want any royalties, because he feels like the artists are the ones that are making this music and he's just sitting there recording and doing what they want. Obviously there's a lot more to it that, and he's very modest and whatever, but it's because of him her vocals are the way they are on this record. You can hear the later on albums. I don't know who recorded them, but I listened to her newest album, and I think she's really come into her own, found her own on this new album. I think it's Divers or something.
Yeah.
But the thing that stands out in this album, and then when I know who engineered it, polyrhythms is a big thing on this album, and polyrhythms is basically clashing rhythms that shouldn't sound like they're different time signatures, different rhythmic patterns, and they sound clashy, but they're not. They work on the rhythm spectrum. But she like this whole album, like everything, she'd be there with her harp, and it's like it's going one way, and then all of a sudden the swooping string section will come in and go in another direction. But it works, it's mental, and only because she was working with Steve Albini on this that it worked. And the same with the vocals. You can hear her getting to some stages where I know I'm jumping all over the place because I'm just blown away by this approach to recording. But the way you listen to this album and you don't know what you're gonna hear next over. It's so like unexpected. It just comes out of nowhere. Like she'll start on one key and all of a sudden she's like, what? It's just like, oh, well, holy shit, and she does this cool thing where she leaves gaps between each sort of set of lyrics, and you expect her to come in on the same key that she left on, but she doesn't, and she'll throw you a curveball, and it's really unexpected. It's a really, I don't think I've actually heard anybody do that before. I'm like, maybe my knowledge of this stuff is primitive, but like as far as from all the music I've listened to for I'm only 21, so I've only listened to a few albums. Yeah, but Bjork comes to mind when I listen to this, except for it's Bjork, if I dare say, more creative vocally, and more lyrical vocal styles. But Bjork's definitely somebody that came to mind on this one anyway. But yeah, man, Steve Albini, when I read that, I was like, fuck, man, that's crazy.
It's funny, going through the reception of this album, like critical acclaim all around, 85%, 4.5, B+, 5 out of 5, 4, and then the Rolling Stone gave it 2 out of 5. And it's funny because the Rolling Stone critic, Christian Horde, fuck you, Christian, called the album hard to stomach and plagued by cultivated cult status. And then he said, the indulgent vocal quirks that make Bjork sound like Kelly Clarkson.
Fuck's sake.
It's so mean, but it's funny. So yeah, but it is interesting because if you listen to her first album, The Milky Eyed Mender, I found, I'll be honest, I can't listen to the album. I find it atrocious. I find it's interesting because on that album you can hear what she's trying to do. You can hear it's the precursor to this, and you can hear her, I guess, experimenting, trying, and just imagine a vocal style like this but rough. That's just a chaotic mixture, and it sounds like it. So definitely don't listen to that one. I'm sorry, but everyone has one bad album. And then with this album, it's all comes into play. She's, even though it sounds pretty crazy to most people, it's crafted better. It's it's more precise. It's more professionally. She has experience doing this style, and then from here onwards, she just gets better and more used to, more comfortable with that style, and it sounds more natural. But I think this was a turning point album, at least vocally, where you start to notice, as you said, the almost mad genius of the influctuations, the vocal gymnastics, and it's really an insane album and insane vocal styles. But You know what's interesting? And I only found this out, I think this was like a few years ago, because I listened to this album quite often. Like, I listen to it all the time. That and the other album I said are my two favorites. I listen to those quite often. And I only realized because to me, I mean, obviously you have a more refined ear for the music side of things, but I had no idea until a few years ago when I was checking the stats on Wikipedia that there's electric guitar in this album. I can't hear it. I can never hear it. I still can't hear it. There's Grant Giersman. He plays electric guitar on this album, and like, it's so well hidden, I guess. And there's even electric bass. So I don't know what song that's meant to be on, but yeah. So it's like that's the thing. Whatever song that's on or songs, it's masterfully done where it doesn't at all take away from the medieval experience because I can't hear it. So yeah, I just found it interesting because like after going through studying it, I was like, what the fuck? It's actually electric guitar, but it's just so, I guess it's so masterfully hidden that, and it, like maybe it's just a 1 second, I don't know, but it is in there. And you know, looking through again on the stats, you know, this has so many end of the year, like, you know, top album of 2006, just so many accolades. That's the word, accolades. So many fucking accolades, like 50, it looks like 50 accolades, and then end of the decade. It's just like, I'm happy that there are so many people out there, so many publications, so many places that recognize this album for how special it really is. You know, it's just, and I just, because whenever I listen to it, you know, actually I was listening to it today after work. It's just like, it's every time I listen to it, you know, it takes you to this like almost like, you know, like it's almost like a medieval ASMR. You know, you put it in and you just feel yourself in a different century, a few centuries. You know, you imagine yourself just like walking around, and there's like you know, like huts everywhere and people in robes and, you know, like archers and shit. Like you just, you know, a jester playing on the streets. You just like imagine this shit. And yeah, it's just like, I think you can't put a price on that experience as a whole. And as I was saying earlier, I think if she gave into her hypothetical fears and did a normal vocal style, I think this album would have been cut in half in terms of how magical it ended up being had she of changed her style. So, you know, I can't give this album enough credit for sticking to something that's untraditional, obviously, with the vocals, creating that atmosphere, the production, the list of musicians and orchestra added to this album, like, and like you said, the producer for it, engineer for it, just going all, even the what's his face, even the producer, Van Dyke Parks, produced this album, and he's worked with U2, Ringo, Bob Dylan, Silverchair. So it's like she really went all out in making this sound timeless and just, you know, classic, like making sure that this album stays like, because, you know, some albums you listen to over and over again and it just loses its magic. You listen to it enough times, you're like, oh yeah, you know, fuck. But this album, every time you put it on, well, to me, every time you put it on, it's that same refreshing, like, it's like every time you listen to this album in closed headphones, you just teleported back to that same world you're in, kind of like a VR, you know, kind of thing. So yeah, no, to me, it's just all around just a phenomenal experience and album.
Yeah, it's unreal. I mean, it was mixed by a man called Tim Boyle as well, and he's worked with some amazing artists, and his daughter is actually a folk artist. Her name is Bridget Boyle. I think she's had like moderate success, but really, really good singer as well, and folk, and it kind of made sense that obviously she was inspired from, I think he worked with a lot of folk artists, but he's gone now, rest in peace, Tim. But you know, there was a lot of talent put into this album, and do you know, something that always strikes me is being a vocalist for, I'm only 21, so I've been singing for about 4 or 5 years. I'm really pushing this 21 thing, aren't I? What you call it? Yeah. So when a singer has good technique and they know how to sing in the real realms of technical vocals, but yet they choose to sing outside of that range, where you get most of the most interesting tonalities in a voice or unusual sounds. I have so much respect for artists that do that, because it hurts. It's dangerous, and you can really damage your career physically. And this happened to Joanna. She ended up with nodules on her throat, which is one of my biggest fears, because as much as I like to sing in the realms of you know the proper techniques, diaphragm breathing, all that, sometimes you get excited and you want to do like a head vocal, or sing from the throat, and it makes you sound really feral and crazy and a bit and you can hear a lot of that on this album. And unfortunately, it actually caught up to her, and she did get nodules on her throat. And it took her a good while, like 5 or 6 months or something, to get back into singing. And there's all this discussion that her voice has changed. Which I think it's not that it's changed. I think it's more that she is a little bit more aware or conscientious. So this new record that she has out, Divers, her singing is it's still got this really unique sound off it, but some of the really wild vocals she's kind of held off on. But that's on the record. Like, she probably go playing live and she'll have her giant harp and she'll get all excited, and that's what happens. Like, on record, it's easy to sing correctly on a record, or sing wildly on a correct record and sing correctly live. It depends on what kind of artist you are. But for me, when I'm with the band, you get carried away, and technique goes out the window, and you get caught up in the moment, and that's when injuries can happen. Like, and this is the thing people don't realize. Vocals are, it's a muscle. It can be injured, but like anybody that is into any kind of opera singer, Joanna is essentially a soprano singer. She sings up in that high register, so like it's incredible. So anyway, one thing I wanted to point out, that she's also moved away from the polyrhythms with this newer album. She she just thinks that being artists that make things a little convoluted and bit complex unnecessarily nowadays, she's kind of like moved away from that, and she thinks her quote that I read, whether it's a real quote or not, she said, polyrhythms are wanky. So I can't wait to say that to Terence later, because we're always chatting about polyrhythms here in the music room. We love like clashing with each other rhythmically, and it for her to say it's wanky is pretty funny. Like, but yeah, so Drag City Records, it's an independent label. There's another really cool aspect about Joanna, is the fact that she's married to a famous actor. She's had a really great career. She could have moved on to a big major label, but she chose not to. And she doesn't have any music on Spotify, which I didn't realize why until it's the same thing. A lot of artists have issues with Spotify. Personally, I don't. I get paid from them, so I'm happy with that. But like, on the bigger end of things, I think it might be a bit different. I think the bigger the artist you are, the more issues you have with streaming services in a funny way, because the streaming services have like the labels, the big major labels in their pocket. It's all a big thing. But when you're in the independent realm, I don't know. She's in the independent realm, but she's still not happy about it anyway. So she chose to stay or go with an independent label, which like a Sony or Universal, any of them would whip her up and sign her in a heartbeat, like, that kind of way. But that's what I think is really cool about her. She's sticking to that, and she's not really about that. A band called Ghost, And I'm not talking about Ghost that everybody knows now, the Swedish band, a Japanese band called Ghost, who split up in 2014, were signed to Drag City. They're like this cool psychedelic rock kind of outfit. But yeah, they pretty much finished their career, and Ghost, the Swedish band, started their career. So it's like two different ghosts. But anyway, so yeah, there's some really, really interesting artists on that label too. But for five songs, 56 minutes, I think it was. Jesus, man, I was like really surprised when you said folk to me, and I saw one of the tracks was 17 minutes long. I was like, holy shit.
Hey, 16:53.
Yeah,
Why
right. Yeah.
fuck? No.
Get it right.
Yeah. No. But yeah. Real quick, I wanted to, because talking about before vocals and how it's doing certain vocals can fuck you up and stuff. Like, it just makes me wonder, like, how is someone like Danny Filth alive? Like, he does even now. I mean, obviously he's cut down a lot since his early albums, but still, when he's live, he does that real. I don't even know how he gets those high pitches, but like he reaches, but he still does them. It's like, your vocals must be fucked. His throat must be just full of just shit. Yeah. No, it just like, it made me think of all these crazy singers.
Yeah.
Like, how? But a good thing, because you're only 21. That's why you sound so shit now. But once you get older, you'll come to.
A few more years practice, yeah.
It's weird. I'm somehow older than you, 28.
Old man.
Old man. All right. So, who did you want to shout out today?
Yes, I would like to shout out the lovely people at Skull Strings. I was just changing my strings today on my Cassidy's guitar. We have a show on Saturday, so I'm sitting here and I'm making all my instruments lovely and clean and ready for war on Saturday here in Letterkenny. And we're playing the Disturbance 6-year anniversary show. So it's going to be gnarly. So anybody that's in the area, come out. But Skull Strings are the man that gets me through my sets, or the lady, or the they that gets me through the... Anybody that's into bass strings, the same deal. Cass, I had a set of his strings here, but they're gone missing. Amazing. Drop your sound, rock out with Skull Strings.
Nice. Today I'm going to shout out Josh Freeman, aka There's Only One Elvis. Actually, he's going to be the featured artist on the next Morgue Rock. So that's going to be good. I already wrote the review for his latest album. It's also a very good album. Yeah, so he's an amazing, surprisingly one-man band, considering the music he makes. That's pretty insane. Yeah, great guy, great albums, and he even has merch we're collaborated with as well. I don't have mine at the moment, and yours is coming soon, I believe. But yeah, we have the SAGAS merch. It says, "Fuck work, listen to SAGAS," and it has our logo at the back. It's pretty sick, and there'll be new designs coming out soon. And also, yeah, go check out his merch as well, obviously, for his own stuff. Yeah, talented guy, talented designer, talented everything. And United Music Mafia co-friend, collaborator. I don't know what to say. Anyway, great guy. I'll put the words up. You'll see it in the editing when it comes out. So yeah, where to go to get it? And yeah, happy days. Cool.
Happy days.
You know what time it is, running?
It is time for... this is a heavy one. The Devil's Advocate. The Devil's Advocate! Ow!
I was expecting you to pull out the harp.
How'd you tune a harp?
Not what I expected. Now this might be I'm going to go on a limb and say this might be the hardest Devil's Advocate for me personally, because just like other albums we talked about in the past, when you have an album that's an experience, it's kind of like you're taking out an ingredient more than you are a bad song. Because to me, there's no bad song on this album. There's only 5. Not much is useful. But, it's really tough. I don't, it's super tough for me, because, I was worried about doing this segment all day. I was like, what do I choose for the worst track? For my favorite track, I'd probably have to say between Emily or Monkey and Bear. I just think that, it's such a cool intro, 12 minutes long, but it's such a cool intro. It's riveting, it's mysterious, it's otherworldly, so it's just like perfect. And then Monkey and Bear has kind of like a cool story to it. Monkey and Bear. I don't know. It's just like a cool thing to it. So yeah, those are my. I think I have to go with the OG intro, Emily. It's a 12-minute masterpiece, as much as I do with Monkey and Bear. But for the final track, and that's the thing. Even the 16-minute 53, Only Skin, I found that perfect from start to finish. So it's like I can't even blame the length, because there's nothing wrong with it, So it's just like, and Stardust and Diamonds has this really ambient feel to it. It's almost like the instruments are so quiet. It sounds like if Rain ASMR could talk. That's what the production would sound like to me. It's just insane. Like how many times I've fallen asleep to this album? Not because it's boring, but because it's just so relaxing. Especially when that song starts, I'm just like, so I guess really, Cosmia would be my only choice then, but it's unfair because I don't really know what's wrong with it. I've said too many good things about the first 4. I don't know. Like it's fuck it. For a petty reason, my petty reason today will be because Cosmia is too short. I know this is a cop-out of the Devil's Advocate, but I really don't know what to say for a legitimate reason for this edition. So
Sweet. Nah, fair enough, man. I mean, like for this is my first time hearing Joanna, and I found it difficult myself to choose a least favorite as well, to be honest. For my favorite track, I don't know, Monkey and Bear is sick, and Emily was the very first song I heard of hers, obviously, because it's the first track in the album. It really stood out for me. But I think my favorite might be Sawdust and Diamonds. I just love the whole, like, why the long face, and the way she brings that out several times. And like I said earlier on, the way she jumps and melodically and lyrically, how she can sing the same line a few bars later, completely different. It just works, and it's just it's amazing. There's a lot of like really erratic kind of vocal styles in it, which I really love. Unexpected notes, like I said, and it's stripped back. That's what I really like. It's stripped back. It's just her and the harp, and it's just raw, but as raw as can be, being produced by Steve Albini. But it's beautiful. So that's, I think, definitely my favorite one. The first line of Emily, I absolutely love that. I'd listen to just that first phrase on repeat. I just love it. I just love the start, the way it kicks in. It's sweetly haunting, that kind of way. Like, it just has this like, you should be freaked out, but you should be in like a little nice warm bubble. It's it's crazy, like. But the Monkey and Bear song was the one that really made me think of Bjork, actually. But yeah, Only Skin is badass as well. There's like this nice bit where she locks in. It's like the only like really straightforward piece in the whole album where she locks in melodically with the strings and her vocals, and it's just perfect. Like, it's absolutely brilliant. It's probably the best part in the album, but as a song in general, plus it has like banjos in it and stuff, and mandolins. I'm just like, oh, sick! Bring it on, man. But yeah, I agree with you on my least favorite song, Cosmia, as well. It's got loads of cool harp, and there's a mouth harp in it, which I really like. I love the sound of mouth harps, like, but it's catchy. You know, it's just it's the most melodic song on the album, which is usually the one that I would gravitate to most. But yeah, no, I think overall it's probably the one that I would go back to less, just tonally, you know, but incredible album, amazing songs, great choice, really unexpected choice, especially for, you know, you've been saying for so long, bro, you want to do a folk album, and I was expecting like a guy and an acoustic guitar. I wasn't expecting an album like this, you know. So yeah, sick, really, really cool. Freak folk for the win.
You're expecting like a Leonard Cohen.
Yeah, that's yeah, something like that, like, you know. But,
did you hear
yeah,
his last album before he died?
no.
Leonard
Oh,
Cohen?
maybe I did.
Leonard
Did you
Cohen.
send that? I feel like you sent that to me before. It's like something.
Yeah, I think that was David Bowie's Black
Oh,
Star.
right. Yeah, Black Star.
It's crazy because, like, apparently he knew he was going to pass away, and on one of the songs on this last album, it has the black and white cover.
Yeah,
I forgot what song it was, but he says pretty much a prayer of death as the chorus.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh,
right.
fuck. Like, I mean, knowing that he died, that's why it's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, crazy. Cool. No, that was that. Do you have an album already picked up?
I do. Right. I thought I'd go against the usual grain as well. Not as off the beaten path as this incredible album, but a man that I have mentioned on the podcast probably 1,000 times, and every interview I've ever done, I've mentioned them. And anybody that's ever asked me who is my guitar hero, I've always said this man, Mr. Richie Kotzen. So I'm finally gonna pick an album for the podcast because Richie Kotzen is in a band called the Winery Dogs, and the Winery Dogs recently released a brand new album, Winery Dogs 3, Endo 3, and this is a super group, if you will. So we won't give any spoilers, but yes, I get to chat about Richie Kotzen.
Nice.
So it's not metal, but it's not folk. It's rocking, and the musicianship on this album is wicked. So I'm excited to talk about my guitar god, man.
I'm excited to, go check it out. Well, until next time, and as we say on the SAGAS Metal Podcast, same time, same place, or something.